Just really sorry for them. My heart breaks when I think about it, and seeing all of them when they play outside just makes me really sad.
The festive cheer of the holiday season was shattered in Colorado Springs in the early hours of December 19th, 2023. At precisely 12:29 a.m., a chilling 911 call from Kimberlee Singler, a 35-year-old licensed practical nurse, pierced the silent night. Her voice, laced with apparent distress, reported a burglary and a violent attack within her apartment at Palomino Ranch Point. She claimed to have been awakened by a loud noise, only to discover her 11-year-old daughter bleeding from injuries inflicted by a masked intruder who had subsequently fled the scene. This initial narrative, however, would soon unravel, revealing a far more sinister and heartbreaking reality. Responding officers arrived at apartment 108 to a scene that starkly contrasted with the festive decorations adorning the complex. Inside, amidst the scattered remnants of Christmas presents, a tableau of unimaginable horror awaited them. The air hung heavy with the metallic scent of blood, a gruesome counterpoint to the lingering aroma of pine and cinnamon. Kimberlee met the officers at the door, bearing a small cut on her neck and bloodstains on her clothes, a seemingly superficial injury compared to the carnage within. She maintained her composure, her demeanor a perplexing mixture of distress and a disconcerting calmness that would later fuel investigators' suspicions. The true extent of the tragedy lay hidden in the bedrooms. In one room, Eliana, 9, and Aiden, 7, appeared to be peacefully asleep under a frozen-themed blanket. A closer look revealed the horrifying truth. Each child had been fatally stabbed, their small bodies bearing multiple wounds. Eliana still clutched her beloved stuffed Olaf doll, a heartbreaking reminder of the innocence stolen from her. In the next room, elder daughter lay on the floor, clinging to life. She too had suffered multiple stab wounds, including a deep laceration across her throat, mirroring the superficial wound on her mother's neck. The injuries sustained by the two children, although differing significantly in their severity, pointed towards the same chilling source, although one of them was far more critical than the other. As paramedics rushed mother and daughter to the hospital, the gravity of the situation became increasingly apparent. The apartment, despite the apparent signs of a struggle, bore no indication of forced entry. Doors and windows were locked from the inside. No fingerprints or DNA evidence suggested the presence of an intruder, casting immediate doubt on Kimberlee's account. Instead, the scene pointed inwards. A bloodied knife, the apparent murder weapon, lay in the living room amidst the overturned presents. The fact that the knife came from within the apartment, combined with the lack of any external signs of forced entry, painted an increasingly suspicious picture. Multiple bullet casings littered the floor, a detail conspicuously absent from Kimberlee's initial 911 call and casting further doubt on her narrative. The inconsistencies in Kimberlee's story were mounting rapidly. Her seemingly minor injuries contrasted sharply with the brutal nature of the attacks on her children. The change of clothing, the delayed 911 call, the unexplained bullet casings, and the absence of any evidence of an intruder all converged to form a disturbing hypothesis. As investigators meticulously documented the scene, collecting blood samples, fingerprints, and DNA evidence, the focus of their investigation began to shift from an unknown assailant to the very person who had called for help, Kimberlee Singler herself. The festive decorations, intended to symbolize joy and celebration, now served as a chilling backdrop to a scene of unimaginable violence, casting long shadows over the shattered lives of the Singler family. While medical professionals worked tirelessly to stabilize elder daughter, fighting to save her from the brink of death, Kimberlee Singler received treatment for her comparatively superficial knife wound. She continued to maintain her fabricated narrative, recounting the story of a masked intruder who had violated their home and attacked her and her children. However, her performance of distress, observed by increasingly skeptical police officers, felt contrived. It lacked the genuine raw emotion expected of a mother who had witnessed such horrific violence against her children. Her retelling of events, though consistent in its broad strokes, lacked crucial details. Elder daughter, traumatized and in immense pain, initially echoed her mother's story. She spoke of a stranger breaking into their home, a shadowy figure who had inflicted the horrific injuries. This initial account, however, was heavily influenced by the presence and narrative of her mother. As she recovered in the hospital, separated from her mother's influence, and surrounded by the compassionate care of medical staff and later foster caregivers, a gradual shift began to occur. The safe and supportive environment allowed her to process the trauma and begin to piece together the fragmented memories of that horrific night. Meanwhile, investigators pressed Kimberlee for more details. What did he look like? How did he get in? What did he take? Her responses were vague and inconsistent, changing slightly with each retelling. She stumbled over descriptions, unable to provide a coherent picture of the alleged intruder. The more she spoke, the more her story unraveled under the weight of its own contradictions. The investigators, their suspicions now hardening into certainty, recognized the telltale signs of deception. Kimberlee abruptly left the hospital as soon as she got the chance, once her own superficial injuries were treated, abandoning her daughter to continue her recovery alone. This callous act of desertion further solidified the investigators' belief that Kimberlee was not the victim she portrayed herself to be, but rather the perpetrator of this horrific crime. It was a chilling betrayal, compounding the trauma already inflicted upon her surviving daughter. It was in the quiet sanctuary of a foster home, shielded from her mother's influence and surrounded by compassionate caregivers, that she finally found her voice. Away from the shadow of her mother's fabricated narrative, the truth began to emerge, hesitant at first, then gaining momentum as the girl found the strength to share her horrifying ordeal. The absence of her mother created a space for healing, both physical and emotional, enabling her to confront the terrifying truth of what really transpired on the night of December 18th. Her trembling voice recounted a chilling sequence of events, beginning with a phone conversation she overheard prior to the attack. In that conversation, she heard her mother utter the chilling words, "I will kill them all." Later, she described how her mother had given her and her siblings milk that tasted different or strange. Kimberlee's demeanor was eerily calm as she led them to their bedroom, instructing them to close their eyes. Then, a bang ripped through the quiet of the night, followed by searing pain in her own neck. She had been stabbed. Instinctively, she feigned death, paralyzed by terror. As she lay there, bleeding, she heard the cries of her younger siblings. She begged her mother not to kill her, but her pleas were met with silence, followed by the chilling stillness that descended upon the apartment as her siblings' cries were abruptly cut short. The only sounds that broke the silence were those of her mother moving around. After an agonizing wait, pretending to be dead, she heard her mother make the 911 call, her voice now laced with a manufactured distress that contrasted sharply with the chilling calmness she had exhibited just moments before. Elder daughter's testimony provided the missing pieces of the puzzle. Her account explained the lack of forced entry, the changed clothes, the delayed 911 call, the bullet casings, and Kimberlee's strangely detached demeanor. The girl's statement, delivered with the raw emotion of a child who had witnessed unimaginable horror, painted a picture of premeditated violence and chilling betrayal. It was a turning point in the investigation, shifting the focus squarely onto Kimberlee Singler, the mother who had presented herself as a victim, but who was now the prime suspect in the brutal murder of her own children. The investigation was far from over, but daughter's brave testimony provided the crucial breakthrough needed to begin uncovering the truth behind the Singler family tragedy. The investigation into the horrific events of December 18th demanded a deeper understanding of Kimberlee Singler's life. The emerging narrative revealed a woman entangled in a web of personal struggles, her life marked by a bitter custody battle, increasingly erratic behavior, and a documented history of mental illness. This chapter delves into the complex factors that culminated in the unimaginable tragedy, exploring the potential motivations behind Kimberlee's desperate act. Kimberlee Singler, born in Colorado Springs in 1987, presented a deceptive facade of normalcy. Outwardly, she appeared to be a dedicated, licensed practical nurse, a profession demanding empathy and care. However, behind this carefully constructed image, her personal life was unraveling. Her marriage to Kevin Wentz had deteriorated into acrimony, culminating in divorce proceedings initiated in 2018 and finalized in 2020. The end of the marriage marked not a resolution, but rather the beginning of a protracted and increasingly bitter custody dispute over their 3 children. Almost immediately following the divorce, Kimberlee began exhibiting a pattern of behavior aimed at restricting Kevin Wentz's access to their children. In early 2021, She attempted to relocate the children to Florida, a move fiercely opposed by Kevin, who argued that such a drastic change would disrupt their lives and severely limit his ability to be a father to them. This attempt to relocate became a recurring tactic. She later tried to move the children again, this time to Oregon, further escalating the conflict and deepening the rift between the separated parents. These maneuvers, perceived by both Kevin and the courts as manipulative attempts to alienate him from his children, fueled the ongoing custody battle and added to the mounting stress in Kimberlee's life. Simultaneously, her behavior became increasingly erratic. Court records documented a pattern of non-compliance with court orders, missed custody exchanges, and a stream of unsubstantiated allegations against Kevin. She portrayed him as a dangerous and unfit parent, often leveling these accusations just before or during his scheduled visits with the children, creating further tension and obstacles to his parental rights. In September 2023, amidst the escalating custody battle, Kimberlee filed for a temporary protection order against Kevin in El Paso County, claiming he had waved a knife at her. Kevin vehemently denied the accusation. After a thorough investigation and court hearings, the order was rescinded due to lack of credible evidence. Despite this legal setback, Kimberlee persisted in her attempts to portray Kevin as a threat to their children, using the unsubstantiated knife incident to bolster her narrative and further restrict his access to them. Underlying these escalating conflicts was Kimberlee's documented struggle with mental illness. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder, she was prescribed medication to manage her condition. However, reports and testimonies from those close to her indicated that she frequently neglected her medication regimen, exacerbating her emotional instability and contributing to her increasingly erratic behavior. Child Protective Services, responding to concerns about the children's welfare, had been involved with the family multiple times. While the specifics of these interventions remain confidential, they underscore the growing concerns surrounding Kimberlee's ability to provide a stable and safe environment for her children. Tragically, despite these warning signs, Kimberlee retained custody. The culmination of these mounting pressures came in December 2023. On December 16th, in a blatant act of defiance, Kimberlee violated a court order to bring the children to a designated police station for a visit with their father. She falsely claimed to be hours away in Breen Ridge, Colorado, a lie easily exposed. This flagrant disregard for the court's authority proved to be the final straw. On December 17th, recognizing the escalating danger posed by Kimberlee's instability and manipulative behavior, a judge awarded temporary full custody of the children to Kevin Wentz, pending a final hearing scheduled for January 18, 2024. While this custody decision has been widely speculated as a breaking point for Kimberlee, leading to the horrific events of December 18th, law enforcement has not officially established a motive. The popular sentiment on social media, suggesting a motive of "if I can't have them, no one will," remains unconfirmed by authorities. The investigation is ongoing, and various factors are being considered, including the long-running custody dispute with Kevin Wentz. Adding another layer of complexity is the surviving daughter's testimony, in which she recounted her mother claiming, "God made me do it," offering a glimpse into Kimberlee's disturbed state of mind at the time of the incident. As the investigation progressed and the evidence against Kimberlee Singler mounted, the net began to close. On December 26, 2023, 4 days after she walked out of the hospital, abandoning her injured daughter, the Colorado Springs Police Department issued an arrest warrant. The charges were staggering: 2 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Eliana and Aiden, attempted first-degree murder for the brutal attack on elder daughter, and additional counts of child abuse and first-degree assault. The warrant painted a grim picture of a mother-turned-monster, a woman accused of unspeakable acts of violence against her own flesh and blood. The Colorado Springs Police Department's Violent Offender Fugitive Task Force was mobilized, their mission to bring Kimberlee to justice. Knowing she was a flight risk, having already vanished once from the hospital, the task force launched a comprehensive search. Her last known sighting was on December 23rd, and her current whereabouts were unknown. A public appeal for information was issued, urging anyone with knowledge of Kimberlee's location to contact the police or Crime Stoppers. As the task force diligently followed every lead, investigators continued to build their case, meticulously piecing together the events leading up to the horrific murders. They confirmed that Kimberlee's initial report of a burglary was a fabrication, a desperate attempt to conceal her heinous crime. All the evidence pointed to her as the sole perpetrator. The search intensified, expanding beyond Colorado's borders as authorities suspected she might have fled the state. Then, on December 30th, 2023, a crucial break in the case. Kimberlee Singler was apprehended, not in a neighboring state, but across the Atlantic, in the United Kingdom. Specifically, she was located in the upscale neighborhood of Kensington in London. The arrest, executed without incident, brought a sense of relief to the investigators and a glimmer of hope for justice for Eliana and Aidan. The question remained, why London? Why Kensington? The answer, while not fully understood, added a perplexing layer to the already complex narrative. It's believed that Kimberlee's choice of London, and Kensington in particular, may have been influenced by a desire to disappear into the anonymity of a large cosmopolitan city. Kensington, known for its affluence and international residents, could have seemed like an ideal place to blend in and evade detection. Additionally, her documented mental health struggles, exacerbated by the recent loss of custody, likely played a significant role in her decision-making. It's possible she was experiencing a break from reality, seeking refuge in a place that felt distant from the scene of her crimes and the mounting legal pressures she faced. While her specific reasons remain unclear, her flight to London suggests a desperate attempt to escape the consequences of her actions, a gamble that ultimately failed. Kimberlee's actions during her time in London suggested a profound disconnect from reality. She checked into a Kensington hotel under her own name, a reckless act for a fugitive attempting to evade capture. Her use of her own passport for international travel further highlighted her apparent lack of awareness regarding the gravity of her situation. It is unclear how long she intended to remain in London, or if she had formulated any concrete plans beyond escaping her immediate reality. Perhaps she clung to the hope that her fabricated story would somehow shield her, even across international borders. Or maybe, lost in the depths of her delusion, she simply failed to grasp the global reach of law enforcement. Regardless of her intentions, her time as a fugitive was short-lived. Acting on information from US authorities, officers from the UK's National Crime Agency, NCA, located her at the Kensington Hotel and swiftly took her into custody. The fantasy world she had constructed crumbled, the cold reality of her crimes setting in as she was apprehended. The extradition process, however, was far from straightforward, promising a complex and lengthy legal battle. Kimberlee Singler's first appearance in a UK court was on December 31st, 2023, at Westminster Magistrates Court. She stood before the judge, formally charged with the crimes she was accused of committing in Colorado: 2 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Eliana and Aidan, 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 1 for the attack on her surviving daughter, and another stemming from an alleged plot against Kevin Wentz, the details of which remain undisclosed, as well as multiple counts of child abuse and assault. The weight of these charges hung heavy in the air as she was remanded into custody, the start of a protracted legal battle that would determine her fate. From the outset, Kimberlee fought extradition to the United States. Her legal team argued that the potential sentence of life without parole, mandatory for first-degree murder in Colorado, constituted a breach of her human rights under European law. This legal maneuver added another layer of complexity to the already intricate extradition process, delaying her return to Colorado and prolonging the agonizing wait for justice for Kevin Wentz and his family. The legal battleground shifted from the horrific details of the crime itself to the intricacies of international law and human rights. A full extradition hearing was scheduled for January 29, 2024. The prosecution meticulously presented their case, laying out the chilling evidence against Kimberlee. They detailed the circumstances of the children's deaths, emphasizing the lack of forced entry at the apartment, the inconsistencies in Kimberlee's initial account, and the compelling testimony of implicating her mother. They highlighted Kimberlee's subsequent flight to the UK, portraying it as an attempt to evade justice rather than a delusional escape. The prosecution aimed to demonstrate the strength of their case, arguing that the evidence overwhelmingly pointed to Kimberlee's guilt and justified her extradition to face trial in Colorado. Kimberlee's defense team countered by reiterating their arguments against extradition based on the potential sentence of life without parole. They attempted to cast doubt on the reliability of suggesting it was coerced or influenced by the trauma she had experienced. They argued that her young age and the emotional distress of the situation made her account vulnerable to manipulation and therefore less credible. The defense sought to undermine the prosecution's narrative, highlighting the potential for error and emphasizing the importance of upholding Kimberlee's human rights. Despite the defense's arguments, the judge ruled in favor of extradition, concluding that the evidence presented met the requirements for extradition under the relevant treaties and that the potential human rights concerns did not outweigh the interests of justice. However, Kimberlee's legal team immediately filed an appeal, further delaying her return to Colorado and extending the already agonizing wait for closure. The swift brutality of Kimberlee Singler's alleged crimes stood in stark contrast to the agonizing slowness of the legal proceedings that followed. Each motion, each appeal in her fight against extradition prolonged the suffering of the victim's family and the Colorado Springs community. As the months dragged on, the case became increasingly entangled in legal complexities, leaving a grieving family and community trapped in a limbo of unanswered questions and unresolved grief. Meanwhile, elder daughter began her arduous journey of healing. Surrounded by the support of family, she received ongoing therapy to process the unimaginable trauma and profound betrayal she had endured. While her path to recovery is long and undoubtedly challenging, her resilience shines through. Out of respect for her privacy, the specifics of her care and current living situation will remain undisclosed. The Singler family tragedy sent shockwaves through Colorado Springs, transforming a private matter into a shared public grief. The community rallied around the Wentz family, offering solace and support through vigils, memorials, and fundraisers. This outpouring of compassion demonstrated the profound impact of the tragedy and the unifying power of shared grief. Beyond personal loss, the case ignited crucial conversations about societal issues, the effectiveness of child protective services, the complexities of mental health within the family dynamic, and the devastating consequences of domestic violence. Kimberlee's documented history of mental illness and the volatile custody battle raise questions about potential opportunities for earlier intervention. While specific details about CPS involvement remain confidential, the case underscores the critical need for greater awareness, resources, and improved intervention strategies. Nearly a year after the horrific events of December 18, 2023, Kimberlee Singler remains in custody in the UK, her extradition battle unresolved. The wheels of justice continue their slow, agonizing turn, leaving a community and a grieving family suspended in a painful wait for closure. The Singler case stands as a stark reminder of the urgent need for increased awareness and support for families facing mental health challenges, emphasizing the critical importance of early intervention. The fragility of life and the enduring power of community in the face of such tragedy serve as lasting legacies of this heartbreaking case. If this story resonated with you and you'd like to stay informed on similar topics, please consider subscribing and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps raise awareness and supports our mission to bring these important stories to light.
Very surprising. This has always been a very quiet neighborhood. Nothing really happens here. The kids played right here all the time. There was literally a snowman right there that they built, I don't know, a week ago. It just finally melted. But yeah, they built it just probably the weekend before it happened.
It's atrocious to hear that something would happen like that, especially to two young children. Just the other day I saw them playing outside in the snow, and to think that they're not here anymore is just, it's heartbreaking.
I'm just really sorry for them. My heart breaks when I think about it, and seeing all of them when they play outside just makes me really sad.
It didn't sound random, but I wasn't certain, and I know I've been looking around for Ring doorbells and planning on doing that soon.